just because I'm on the other side of blindness and I'm enjoying my life doesn't mean it's easy now. There's more responsibility. And there's people who have it way worse than I do. I don't have it all together, but I do have room to share space for someone else that doesn't have the same opportunities or articulation that I have. They haven't been invited on the See-Through podcast just yet. And so I hope that, with this conversation, that it speaks to someone.
Kiana V. Glanton, welcome to the See-Through podcast.
Hello, hello.
And right out the gate, I want to just start with saying that I edited all of the videos for the Foundation Fighting Blindness Share Your Vision series that just recently came out. And while editing those videos, I just loved all your answers, and that's why I reached out to you.
That is super cool. I totally forgot all about those videos because I've had such a crazy summer, but I do remember that. I remember participating in that. That's so cool that it's come back around.
Yeah. And everyone should go check those out and support it. It was a really cool project. Yeah, there was one, without just kind of jumping too far into our conversation, because there's a lot that I want to talk to you about. Like, for example, you're an athlete. You play, blind baseball for the USA team, and you were a Miss Blind Diva 2023. Yes. But during these videos, I guess I'll just start with this, and we'll just see where the conversation goes. You mentioned a story about how you were adapting to your vision loss, because your vision loss happened kind of later in life, right?
That's correct.
Which I think is unique, but also pretty common too. With blindness being a spectrum, you never know how it's going to affect someone. But it came at a time for you when you were raising your daughter. For a lot of people would hear that and say, "Oh, what bad timing." Would you agree with that, or what's your take on that?
Bad or good, it just was what it was. Was it ideal? No, by any means. My little girl at the time of my drastic vision loss was 3. She's 9 years old now, so I kept her alive. She's good, so that's a good sign. Score 1 for mom. But it was really difficult. I had a devastating end of a long-term relationship. I'm losing my sight, and my baby is starting preschool all at the same time. It was incredibly difficult. The stakes were very, very high. I had to learn to be independent while teaching her how to be independent as someone as a toddler moving to a little one. I don't even know what you call them. A big kid, I guess. So as she's learning to tie her shoes, I'm learning how to teach her how to tie her shoes, and I'm learning how to organize clothes as a blind mom. I'm learning to organize my kitchen and keep her safe and clean and make sure she has her shoes on the right feet and her buttons lined up. It was a lot. And there was no learning curve for her. She's just been my daughter her whole life and didn't realize that mommy is going through something that's changing the fabric of who I am. The protector in me did everything I possibly could, but I had to acquire new skills very quickly. When she learned how to cross the street, I learned how to cross the street, and vice versa. She was young, but because I was losing my sight, she had to learn how to read very quickly. And she had to learn how to identify landmarks and street signs and how to switch sides with me and how to walk with me as I held a cane. It was a lot. So I don't think there's a perfect time, but because she was young, she was adaptable. There was never a point that she didn't know me as being sighted. She's always known that I've been visually impaired. So for her, it was just a regular day. As a 3-year-old, for me, it was the most life-changing event in my world at that time. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I think because, a lot of people struggle to adapt to their vision loss without having to factor in, raising a small kid. And, the dynamic of that is what drew my attention to it, because I think it just kind of shows a level of resiliency and strength, but also your spirit too. It wasn't, you didn't say it as like a sob story, you said it as more of a sense of empowerment and like, look at what you can do as well. And look what I can do. And I know that's a lot of how your content online comes across. And I kind of, I wanted to bring you on because when I was editing those videos, like I said, I thought you were crushing all your answers. And I mean, that answer already was great. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain, give me some advice. Cause I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa.
RP.
Yep. RP gang. And, I'm not legally blind yet, but I've lost, a pretty significant amount of my vision, and I'm headed that direction. My mom is legally blind, and I grew up around her being legally blind, and so yeah, as I adapt to vision loss, that's kind of the vibe of the See Through podcast. Is I bring guests on and kind of try to steal their thunder. I try to learn from them and get some advice. So I think we're in this conversation now. So I think just for the listeners, let's hear the story of your vision loss diagnosis, just so we can start at square one, I think.
Sure. I am 41 years young. I'll be 42 in January. So I was born in 1983. In 1988, here in New York City, my parents took me to a doctor because we had lived in Hawaii. My father was in the military, and I had this skin condition, the scaly skin. They couldn't understand what was happening. So I had a biopsy, which came back to have sarcoidosis. And that's an autoimmune disease where the body attacks itself. At the time, it was manifesting in my skin. So I began to see a dermatologist, very frequent, and then eventually an ophthalmologist. And the ophthalmologist said, okay, she has uveitis, which is inflammation of the eye. Right now, there's no issues. She's fine. She's 20/20. But keep an eye on this because it might turn to something. So that was around age 4, age 5. And then by the time I turned 16 in 1989, full-blown glaucoma. Just woke up one day in immense pain out of nowhere. Glaucoma is when you have high pressure in the eye. Normal eye pressure is from 1 to 12. I woke up and mine was a 48. So I literally wish I could have banged my head into a wall to knock myself out. It was such pain.
Wow.
So I began to have different surgeries, a trabeculectomy, which is a surgery that releases pressure. It's like a trap door in your eye to let out the liquid that's building up. I began to have laser surgeries and eye drops, and went through college as a legally blind person, more like 20 over 160, close to 2,200. But I was able to do a lot. I was able to pass, which means to pretend that you're not visually impaired when you actually are.
I'm familiar.
I had training to use a cane, but I hid it. I hid it in my closet. I was very embarrassed the first time I practiced the cane. I wanted to do it in a different neighborhood. They're like, let me just teach you. You don't ever have to use it until you're ready. But we just, in case there's a fire or something, we want you to be safe. All that made sense, but ego and embarrassment, and I just couldn't. I wouldn't. So I would hold everyone's hand. I would use hand magnifiers. I would try to sneak. But when you're visually impaired and you try to sneak as if you're sighted, it shows up. It shows up when everyone's laughing at something and you don't know what. You pretend you know what's happening. You compensate in these different ways. So over the course of my 20s and 30s, I went through chemotherapy because inflammation in the eye multiplies fast like cancerous cells. So they treated my uveitis like cancer. And so monthly treatments at the Stony Brook Center for Cancer Treatment. And my body became really dependent on it. But my vision steadily began to decrease. So I started getting really into fitness and trying to eat healthy. And then I found myself pregnant, happy in a very long-term committed relationship. And we had our first baby. And I'm getting even healthier and stronger. And but my emotions postpartum plays a big role in depression for me after having the child. And it just seems that everything in my world begins to crumble. By the time my daughter is 3 years old, my vision is going down fast. I have ended a long-term, almost 13-year relationship, and I'm going blind. Not legally blind, not a little visual impairment. Every day I'm seeing less and less and less. I can no longer see my face. I can't see my hands in front of my face. I can't see my toes. I can't see the knobs. I can't see things that I saw just the night before. And so at this point, it's time to get help. So I reached out to Lighthouse Guild, which is an organization in New York City that supports the blind and low vision through vocational rehab, mobility, technology, adaptive technology, etc., mental health services. And I'm just like, I got to figure something out. I got to take care of this kid. I have education. I've gone to college. I've gone to grad school. But what am I going to do now that I can't see? How am I going to use Excel? How am I going to use Word? So I began to get these forms of rehab and training, and my vision is just going. It's going, and I just have to bounce back because I know there are people who are totally blind. I began to find community, which is really important for my story. I started to find friends within the blind community because for a long time it was those guys, those blind people. I didn't want to be associated with them because of shame of what we would look like if more than one person was together with our canes. Would we bump into each other? Would people call us the blind mice? Would they laugh at us? And so I felt like away. So I hid from it for a long time until one of my teachers introduced me to blind sports. And that changed everything. I looked at my blindness with, no pun intended, brand new eyes. I no longer cared about the shame. I no longer cared if I went totally blind because I now had people who were around me who were playing with me, competing with me, training with me. And all things were level. All things were equal. We all had to be blindfolded on the field to play baseball. And so it came down to who was the fastest. It came down to who was the strongest and who was the most dedicated. Now you're talking my language because, baby, there is nobody more competitive than me. And so if all of us are legally blind, then none of us are legally blind. Because what does it matter? If you bump into something, I might bump into it too. The looks, the appearance of things on the field just really didn't matter. It mattered about how we were living. And so since then, over the past 5 years, I go to the doctor regularly, I would say once or twice a year. No big surprises. One day I may wake up and be totally blind, and that'll be devastating too. But I know that there's life beyond that. So for me, currently, I have some sight, not much usable sight in my right eye. And in my left eye, it is almost pointless to even have a left eye. Like, it's smaller. There's dystrophy. My eyes are ice blue. They used to be brown when I was born, but they over time turned to ice blue. And it's a smaller shape. The eye began to shrink as it's not getting any use in that kind of way through vision. So when something is inactive, it begins to dystrophy. So that is where my eyesight lies now. I do work full time, and I'm a mom all the time, and I have a partner and a business and a team. And so life is really, really big. Actually, my eyesight is just it's not even secondary. It's almost tertiary because I've created a world and I've gotten into a world that there are so many possibilities. And oh, by the way, I happen to be blind.
Yeah. You got a lot of great things going on in your life. And I think that's amazing. I think you have a lot more going on than I do. Keeping busy is fun. I think having a community is key, to happiness. And, it sounds like getting introduced to the blind baseball was a real game changer for you. But
Yes.
It also, at the same time, I feel like you have a natural personality to kind of seek out community. Would you say that? Or would you describe yourself as an extrovert or more of an introvert?
Humongous extrovert. When you look in a dictionary, there's me. There's extrovert, and then there's a little caption that this is Kiana. Yes, I'm an extreme extrovert, but blindness can be isolating.
Yeah.
Visual impairment can be isolating. Health issues can be isolating because there's stages. When you go through vision loss, there's stages of grief, just like as if you lost a person, a family member, a friend. You're losing a part of your world that you've experienced for some time, or the perception of what you're going to miss out on in the future, right? You may not have ever seen the Grand Canyon, but you might one day, you might want to go and look at it, or you might want to skydive, or you might want to go to Paris. And now the idea of you not being able to visually consume that is depressing. And I went through that because I'm thinking, how am I going to identify my kid? Will I ever see her dimple? What happens when she loses her first tooth? Will I even notice what she looks like with no front teeth? What happens when she's a big girl and she has a cap and gown on? What happens when she graduates college? Like, what happens when she's pregnant or she gets her first gray hair? How will I be able to enjoy this? So I went through that. I stayed inside. I hid my cane. I hid my pain for a long time. And then it just, so the timing was right. I was introduced to the Blind Divas. I was introduced to blind baseball. And I began to share stories with people who understood. I began to connect with people through support groups. I had a really unfortunate experience with domestic violence, and I began to find that 4 out of 5 women who are blind or low vision have gone through domestic violence. Those stats are wild.
I didn't know that.
And I didn't realize that all that I had been hiding and keeping inside, the women right next to me in class had gone through very similar circumstances. So how are we going to heal? What are we going to do? How are we going to make this life good for our children, good for ourselves? When we look in the, figurative mirror, how are we going to be proud? I had to find something to believe in. And I come from a Black American family and household that is incredibly communal. So I knew that my healing was going to come through community in some kind of way. We were going to share the pain. We were going to share the joy. We were going to share the war. We're going to share the wins. We're going to share the responsibility. And we're going to open doors for the next person. So when the next mom walks through the door with her 3-year-old in tears because she's learning how to cross the street, I'll be able to tell her, girl, give it some time. You are going to be just fine if you want to. Let's turn this liability into opportunity. And so baseball was the game changer for me, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I as an introvert, I'm just going to say it. I think introverts need extroverts.
Yeah.
We need extroverts that come up to us and to be like, hey, I'm so and so, and that I feel like that's how like introverts make friends, So shout out to all the extroverts who let introverts be their friend,
There's room for all of us. Every single one has space at the table.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even when some people know that, right? I think their personalities can maybe prevent them from wanting to kind of dive into to these new worlds. But once you're in, that's kind of the cool part. Once you get in, like for example with blind baseball or the Miss Blind Diva, those kind of organizations, it opens up so many friendships, and you learn about yourself in the process. I'm guessing that but when you're too afraid to even join or even consider signing up for something, you're missing out on a whole world of opportunity. And that's kind of a message I like to kind of share with, my listeners, is just like, we got to get out there and do more and be more involved. Or if you want to, I don't want to tell anyone how to live, but there's a lot of good that can come with it, in terms of just kind of opening yourself up. And I think your story is a great example of that.
Thank you.
And I did not know that statistic about domestic violence. That's very alarming to hear.
And that's just the women who've reported it.
Yeah.
So if a person said, oh, you're in a wheelchair, who's going to want you? Or just go and you can't take anything with you. All you can take is the clothes on your back. And you're literally a blind person with a cane, or someone takes your cane after abusing you. There's a lot of reason why people don't report it or people stay. And the key is to, when you have the words and you are safe, to share these experiences, because people need to know that this happens, right? I have education. I come from a good home. I come from a good family. And that doesn't prevent you from being in a precarious circumstance. And then you add disability on top of it. It's just a perfect storm. It can be. So I speak openly now after years. I didn't speak about it for 5 years because I really needed therapy and needed to heal, and I'm losing my sight. So a lot of work had to be done behind the scenes and internally before I could speak about it without being re-triggered from other people's circumstances. And even thinking about how my daughter would process this information is to not embarrass her as I'm trying to heal. So a lot of things happen. Like, just because I'm on the other side of blindness and I'm enjoying my life doesn't mean it's easy now. There's more responsibility. There's other people in these circumstances, and there's people who have it way worse than I do. So I don't have it all together, but I do have room to share space and hold space for someone else that doesn't have the same opportunities or articulation that I have. They haven't been invited on the See Through podcast just yet. And so I hope that, with this conversation, that it speaks to someone, and it connects to someone that needs to know that there is hope, there's possibility, whether you're introvert or extrovert, that there is help and there's a way to live a healthy, safe life while having a visual impairment.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, I definitely respect, you taking the time to heal, because that sounds very difficult to navigate, especially with a daughter and things like that. I grew up with a legally blind mom, and, we won't stay on this subject, too long, because I know it's not the easiest subject, but I grew up with my mom was legally blind, and, one of the things that affected me a lot, because, I have the same eye condition my mom has, was hearing like my dad say stuff to her, like calling her like a burden, and that impacted me, because it made me feel like, oh, well, I'm going to be a burden when I grow up. And it just kind of has this like, effect, and I don't want to throw my dad under the bus, but I mean, that's a true thing, that I heard growing up. And it's just like, it's just, and that's just a small taste of it. And I know it can go, there's lots of layers to, verbal abuse, but, I just wanted to share that because if you're listening, and I actually, now that I say it, I feel like most people with a disability have experienced that in some shape or fashion, whether it's at school or with a romantic partner or friend, even family. It is very unfortunate, but it's likely the case.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and there's this perception that, okay, you should be lucky that you found a partner to love you because you're blind, right? So be glad, stick with whoever, accept whoever, because it's going to be really difficult for you to find someone to love that's healthy and wants to be with you. So sometimes we tolerate things. And that's just one circumstance. Sometimes we tolerate things thinking that it's already difficult out there, but the same kind of problems and difficulties that exist within the blind community exist outside of the blind community.
Yeah.
It's just more concentrated. And there's just, like you said, this other level to think about, this other layer to think about. So I'm proud of the people who've been able to share their story and to use difficult circumstances, like you described, to be a better person and a better advocate. Because, we didn't talk about mental health in the same kind of way 30 years ago or even 20 years ago. Now we know that it's important to communicate a lot better, to be honest about our feelings, to be respectful of differences and not look at them as liabilities, but like I said, opportunities for growth or for love or for expansion of your own human condition.
Yeah, no, I love that, making an opportunity out of it. And just learning and growing and not expecting it to be a perfect journey, and giving yourself some grace. I think you have to be soft with yourself sometimes, as well as hard on yourself sometimes, a little combination of both, because sometimes if you're not going hard for yourself, nobody else will, that kind of thing.
That's true.
But let's talk about, well, I'll let you pick. Would you rather talk about blind baseball right now or Miss Blind Diva?
It doesn't even matter because I feel the same way about both of them. Let's go with baseball since it happened first in my life.
Okay. Can we start with like an explanation of how the sport operates?
Absolutely. Blind baseball was created in 1994 in Bologna, Italy. It was an adaptation of the traditional American baseball. Now, within the blind community, there are sports that have a longer history, like goal ball and beat ball. Beat ball has been around for 40 years, but it is not baseball. You hit a ball, you run either to first base or third base, and someone pitches a ball to you, which is really cool because there's this satisfying moment the first time someone pitches a ball to you and you hit it. As a blind person, you didn't even know you could do this, if this was even open to you. So that's beat ball. What I play is Italian baseball, and I love it. So it's been around for over 20 years. It's very popular internationally. Italy has the highest concentration of teams with 12 teams, but there are teams in Hungary and France and Germany, in Australia, in Cuba, in the Netherlands, in Pakistan, in Great Britain, in the United States, right here in New York City. And so I was taking classes at Lighthouse Guild, and my teacher, Ed Plumacher, was an adaptive technology teacher and also a blind person. And he said, you work out every day, you're bodybuilding, why don't you come out and try baseball? You'll love it. And I was like, oh no, you want me to play with you and more blind people? Absolutely not. And so blind baseball has 4 components. There's a throwing, a hitting, a running, and a fielding component, okay? And what you do when you play, you either play offense or defense, just like traditional baseball. And instead of someone pitching a ball to you, you hit something similar to a fungo. A fungo is when you throw the ball in the air and you hit it yourself. But in blind baseball, you hold the ball with your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you hold the ball, which is standard baseball with jingle bells in it, 2 little chimes in it, and use your right hand and you knock that ball out. You drop it right before you swing and you hit it. Once you hit it, you begin to hear a beeping sound, like a homing pigeon or a homing sound. Not a pigeon, but like a homing device sound. And it sounds like a truck backing up. Beep, beep, beep.
Okay.
That's the first base. And you run to that. You use the sound to guide you there. Once you get there, someone at second base has some wooden clappers in their hands. And they clap, clap, clap. That tells you turn, turn, start coming to me. And as you get closer, that sighted person begins to clap faster. Clap, 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 clap. And that means slow down so you don't knock them over. And you make it to second base. Third base is similar with the claps. And then home, there's no one clapping there. They point you in a direction. The sighted person that's on the base points you, and you got to run straight. We play on a grass field so that if you run in the dirt cutout, you're fine. But if you begin to feel grass under your feet to the right, you went too far to the right. And if you feel grass under your feet to the left, you went too far to the left. So it uses a lot of tactile and auditory cues to play traditional baseball. Now that's offense. In the defense, when someone hits the ball to you, there's 5 of us in the field. And we all have on blindfolds and we have our catcher's glove. The ball has to bounce in order for it to be fair. So as it's bouncing, you hear the chimes. So you begin to track the ball. You begin to anticipate. You hear it coming to your left, so you move to your left. Once you get the ball, in order to get the person out that's running, you throw it to the second base person that is sighted. And they'll say, 2, 2, 2, 2. So you use that sound and you throw it to him. That's a lot of information, but it happens so quick. And when I tell you internationally, this game is bananas. It is amazing. Okay, so that's the game. So I go out after Ed has convinced me to come out. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go be cute and I'm going to go play. I need something to believe in. At this point, I had a boyfriend at the time that was an athlete in the blind community, super accomplished, competed in over 200 different competitions and medals and trophies. And he's like, you need to find something for yourself. So I decide I'm going to go. I get out there and our first drill is to run from home plate to first base blindfolded. All right, so you have a little bit of sight still left, Lance, or a lot of sight, right? A lot of usable sight. I want you to run full speed blindfolded. You're going to do what I did, which is run like Frankenstein. You're going to put your hands in front of you and you're going to run thinking you're going to crash into something. So I run like 4 steps and then I stop. Then I run 4 steps and I stop. Then I run 4 steps again. Then finally, I'm like, this is too scary. I take my blindfolds off, and I'm only just a few steps away from first base. So I'm like, just whatever. I'm a little annoyed with myself. But then this young lady comes behind me. It's her turn. She has on an Aaron Judge Yankees jersey and hot pink sneakers, and she looks so cute. She has glasses on, and she just doesn't care. She's just going to come out there and do her best, and she does. And this is the pivotal moment in my whole life story. Okay, you with me, Lance? You follow me?
I'm with you, yeah.
She runs faster than me. And I said, oh no, we won't be having this. When you see someone do what you know you can do better, it's infuriating. Like, it will tear your heart up and your stomach up so crazy. I was just like, oh no, Miss Pink Sneakers is not going to beat me. So I get on base, it's my turn, and I blaze it. I make it in 20 seconds, which is super fast to me. Next thing you know, I run it in 15 seconds and 12 seconds. Then I get to 9 seconds. And I remember Ed saying to me, I cannot believe you ran that fast. Like, oh my God, you really are fast and strong. I'm like, what? It's the moment I found my thing. I found my people. I found my purpose. I found my thing. I said, I'm about to be the next big thing in baseball. And so I'm practicing now. And on the 3rd week of practice, we get a guest comes to our practice, and he's the liaison from Italy. He's American. He's an old gentleman, an old coach, very old school Italian, very loud. And he sees me hit the ball, and I knock that ball back to the Bronx, and I'm in Manhattan. You hear me? I hit that ball with my whole might. And he puts his hands on me, very dramatic. And he says, you are going to be great in this sport. I think you should try out for Team USA. Mind you, I've never played organized sports a day in my life. I'm just doing this for fun, but I'm feeling competitive, and I'm feeling like this might be my thing. And so 2 weeks later, I try out for Team USA. And within another 2 weeks, I'm on Team USA, and we are going to the Netherlands. And I've only been playing for about 2.5 months.
Wow.
So now I'm on Team USA, and I'm just with it. And we go to the Netherlands, my first time in Europe. And I don't make the starting 5. They have me as a designated runner because I'm fast. But I'm still new at the sport. There are more seasoned guys on sports. So they put me with the strongest hitter. He can knock a home run in his sleep. But he's an older gentleman, and he can't run fast. And I am fire on the field. And we are just a combo made in heaven. And we medal. We earned the United States its first medal ever in blind baseball in 2022. I get the bronze medal, and I earned it.
Wow.
First time ever in Europe. First competition ever. And we kill it. And after that, I just remember hearing our national anthem. And I'm not incredibly patriotic, but like in that moment, I recognized the privilege and the honor of being selected and being given a chance to prove myself and represent our country. And ever since then, I have been living, sleeping, eating, yelling, arguing, fundraising, spreading awareness for blind baseball. And actually, we just came back from London in September for our second championship, where we didn't do as well. We got 5th place. But I went out there as the first female captain for Team USA, and we did our best.
Well, it sounds really fun, actually, and you're such a good storyteller. You know, I was hearing like sound effects in my head. I was hearing like, the ball sound, and then the clapping, and I was picturing, you getting better at getting faster and running, to the bases, and the pink sneakers.
Hot pink sneakers.
Yeah. And then the Italian coach, scouting, and then going to the Netherlands. Yeah. You painted a great picture, and it sounds like a really fun time.
It is, and it's spreading in the United States. We have lots of clips online. The USBBA has social media pages, so I will send you links of our championship and the documentary that's being filmed right now featuring us. The trailer is out, so I'll share that information. But it did something to my spirit. It ignited something I didn't even know was there, and this is all within the blind community. I wouldn't have been an athlete in this kind of way in my sighted world, but in the blind world, there was a void. There needed to be someone, a woman, because there's not too many women in our sport, and certainly a woman of color. Like, this lets other people know that, hey, you don't have to look or be a certain way in order to participate. You just have to come out and believe in yourself. That's it. And guess what? When you mess up, nobody can see you anyway, so you'll be just fine.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier, but I kind of want to confirm it. So there's also, variations of people's vision loss, but when you're playing blind baseball, you're blindfolded. So it kind of, that's nice. I like that. I like that. It makes it, even. It's the same way with the the Paralympic, like long jump and things like that, where you have to be blindfolded.
Yeah,
I mean, other sports.
You would have an advantage over me with having more sight. I would have an advantage over my friends that are totally blind. So when we get on the field and we're practicing, we teach people without their blindfold until they get comfortable, because that can be jarring.
Yeah.
But then when it's time, you need to rely on these other senses that you still have. You can use your orientation skills. Your hearing is a big deal. Feeling, tactily the grass and the dirt, and then trusting your instincts. So it becomes not only a game, but it's also sharpening skills that are good for you to use when you're just shopping, when you're out in the street, when you're in your home. It all works in your favor.
Yeah, and it sounds like it teaches you to trust your intuition and your kind of ears more, in terms of trusting, that you're not going to trip over something while running. You kind of have to put a little bit of faith in, the people that are helping the sport kind of work. Because if not, you're going to be too second guessing. You're not going to move as fast as you're not going to get, your run time down like you did. If you're second guessing, if you're doing it right, or if you're going to trip and fall. So it kind of makes you more confident and kind of just go for it. It sounds like.
Yeah. This game, you have 11 seconds on a really competitive game to get the ball or to get to base. And that's not a lot of time with people who've been playing for years and are seasoned. So competition gets heavy. And you're right. It's a game of inches and a game of trust. Trust of your teammates, trust of the sighted coaches, and trust of your own skills.
And before that, what sports did you play? Did any other sports kind of carry over into this? Any skill sets? I seems like you had confidence in your speed.
Yeah, I was really strong. I was bodybuilding. And I do like sprinting. I don't like distance running. But I've never played an organized sport before. I was bodybuilding.
Okay.
So I was in the gym, and I still am in the gym quite frequently and regularly. But I'm just one of those people I have an older brother. I have a little brother. I have a lot of boy cousins. Competition is a big thing. Competition to see who can make their bed up the best, who can play Uno the best, who can run down the street the best. It's just a thing. It's eat or be eaten in my family. So I got on this field, was like, oh, this is light work. I've been playing rough with the boys for a long time.
And did that kind of competition mindset, did that cross over? Because I know you've done the Blind Miss Diva, or Miss Blind Diva, sorry, where you had to compete there.
Yeah.
Did that kind of competitiveness cross over?
Yes, it gave me the confidence. And in fact, a shout out to Foundation Fighting Blindness, but I met the Divas literally at the Foundation Fighting Blindness Vision Walk in New York while I was recruiting in my Team USA uniform. So at that event, we did a warm up. It was a fundraiser walk, a 5K walk. And we got on stage with Team USA. We led everyone in a warm up. And then I went back to our table. And right next to me was this woman in a sparkly gown and a crown and a sparkly cane. And I'm like, who are you, girl? Like, what is going on? She's like, I'm Miss Blind Diva. And then these women on the stage were singing and dancing to salsa. And I'm like, what is this? And they're like, we're dancing with the blind. I said, who are these cool kids, these girls who have the audacity to be so sparkly and confident and sure of themselves? And so they introduced me. And so they invited me to speak on their support group. And then I was nominated to be in the pageant. And like I said, everything is a competition that I think I can win. So I went for war. You hear me? I went for blood. I was so sure of myself in this pageant that I bought 2 outfits for every scene in the pageant, just in case something nefarious happened backstage. Like, what if somebody ripped my dress on purpose? Or, I had all these wild ideas. but I was ready. I was ready to win. One of the competitions was Miss Independent, and that was a crowd favorite competition where you create a video, and I did mine on blind baseball, of course. I had some news coverage, so I used that video, and I got likes, and I was in a head-to-head battle with this other competitor, and we were down to about about 1,200 likes or so. And I went to bed and I was up by 30. And when I woke up the day of the event, I was down by 100. So the next day in my gown, the day of the competition, I stand outside in the rain, full face of makeup, full gown, and me and my manager, we stood outside, my pageant manager, we stood outside on the corner and just solicited votes. Every person I walked by, I don't care who you were, just like the video, until 11:59 a.m., which is when judging stopped, and I was ahead. And I just knew it's on from here. So that was round one of the competition. So I won that title. I became Miss Independent 2023. Then came the big pageant. And so with other women competing, this pageant consists of a formal wear, question and answer, talent portion, business attire, and our introductions. And so I played the drums. I played the conga drums. So I did a little ditty, about 2.5 minutes, the longest 2.5 minutes of my life, because I was a little nervous. And I wore light up sneakers, for a little extra drama and production. And I got up there and I went for war. And I wasn't coming home with anything less than the crown. And so I won. And I knew I was going to win because I was fighting for every negative thing I said about blind people, for everything I thought about myself, because it was just internalized hate and shame.
Yeah.
I felt like my body betrayed me. I felt like my eyes and my God betrayed me. Like, why did you give me this life and then take my vision away? I have this kid. She needs me. She needs me to. We're doing multiplications right now. She's in the 3rd grade. And she needs me to help her with her homework. Well, check this out. I'm just going to have to figure out another way, because I do have life and I do have purpose. But I wanted to show my daughter more than anything that I do find myself to be attractive. I do find beauty in my physical appearance, whether I can see it or not. And I'm going to celebrate me. I'm going to celebrate me at this big age of 40 at the time. I'm going to celebrate my 40-year-old body, my 40-year-old skin, my 40-year-old maturity, my 40-year-old love. I'm going to celebrate all of that on this stage with these other women. So while it was a competition, it was a lot about cooperation too, and empowerment more than anything. Like the audacity to be proud of who I am, even with this cane. In fact, I'm going to put sparkles on my cane and celebrate. I'm going to put light-ups on my sneakers and celebrate. I'm going to go across the stage, head held high, with my little eye and my big blue eye, and I'm going to celebrate me. And maybe someone else that comes into the blind community will have the courage to be proud of who he or she or they are as well. And so I spent the last year running around New York City and the Foundation Fighting Blindness in Chicago and NFB in Florida and every other blindness organization that I could take part in, spreading the word about empowerment and beauty through this lens and this pageant. And 2 weeks ago, we crowned the newest Miss Blind Diva 2024, Rosalind Kennedy, out of Lakeland, Florida. So I no longer am the reigning Miss Blind Diva, but I will always be a queen because I wear my crown and it's just invisible. My crown is more of a baseball hat right now. And I'm proud of that. I'm really proud that they created that platform and that it was helpful to me, and hopefully it'll be helpful to women moving forward. So shout out to the Blind Divas for making me feel very special, making me feel chosen, and making me feel like my image was reflected through the lens of beauty.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think in a way it ties everything together, because I when I was editing these videos for the Foundation Fighting Blindness to Share Your Vision series, you were wearing your pageant, you were wearing your dress, you had the tiara on, you had the sash, and you had nice makeup on, and you looked great in the video, and then your answers, and I was like, the setup, your whole outfit kind of was very like eye-catching, Yeah,
I mean, it was a conference.
Yeah, I'm sure it was easy for you to kind of stand out. you know, and spread that word, because it's a great word that needs to be spread in terms of empowering people to feel, beautiful and feel good about themselves. I think that's a really great, powerful message, especially for your daughter, because it's like how I've heard from other people too. They've given me the advice that kind of how you feel about your disability is kind of how other people will tend to feel about, your disability. And I think like if you had a more shy approach or sad approach, if you were more doom and gloom, I think it unfortunately would maybe your daughter would pick up on that more.
Yeah.
And that's not the message you want to send. And I just find that to be inspirational. I think that's something good to remember, is kind of how we portray ourselves and think of ourselves is going to impact others around us. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you this quick little story about when I won, when I was crowned.
Okay.
We weren't quite sure if I won because there was something with the scoring or whatever. There was a tie for first place, but not for the grand prize. So I win and I'm crowned, and I had bought a little tiara for my daughter, knowing that I was going to win. So I told my family, when I win, put the tiara on her and send her on stage with me. So she gets on stage with me and I'm crowned and I got flowers, and they even got me a WWF wrestling belt that said Miss Blind Diva, which was awesome. So we're on, it was fantastic. So I'm on stage with the flowers and the whole lights and stuff, and they're taking pictures, and I hear my mother say to my daughter, "Callie, give me that phone." My daughter's name is Callie. So I see Callie walk to the edge of the stage and hand my mother her phone. So on the drive home, I'm looking at the pictures as I'm soaking it all in. My daughter was on the stage taking selfies and video of herself as I was being crowned. So she's sticking her tongue out. She's putting up a peace sign behind her head. And I'm just waving my pageant wave. And she is like all but going live from her phone as I'm sitting there. And these are the crazy things that happen when you're parenting while blind. Your kid does things in the background of your pictures that you have no idea. So she's literally sticking her tongue out and taking selfies in my professional pictures. It was awesome. It was a moment. And I'm so glad that my baby was there.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's just having a good time, and I think that's as simple as it should be, is just try to have a good time, put yourself in positions to have a good time. Like if you didn't want to do the pageant, you would have missed out on that opportunity. If you didn't want to take up the offer to go try out blind baseball, you would have never discovered that you were good at it and that you got so much enjoyment out of it. So it's just about trying to have a good time and putting yourself in places where that's possible. And then also that kind of energy, when you're having a good time, other people are having a good time, kind of your daughter's on stage taking selfies, and, it's just kind of, it's contagious, that kind of positivity.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. With that said, I think this wraps up a nice and tight interview. Thanks again for coming on the See-Through podcast. This was a real pleasure to get to talk to you.
It was a pleasure being here with you. I thank you for what you're doing for the community. Whether your vision is a little bit impaired or a lot impaired, when you tell our stories and amplify our voices, it benefits the whole community. So I'm so proud of the work you're doing, and thank you for holding space and sharing space for us. It's special, and I'm a fan. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot, because, sometimes I feel like am I visually impaired enough to have these discussions? But then I remind myself it's not really about me. Like I'm the host of the podcast. It's more about, hearing and talking to other people, because everyone has such fascinating vision loss stories or, stories involving their disability. And I selfishly I need to learn this kind of thing, as I age into my RP. So, hey, I'm doing two great things at once,
Awesome. Well, we're here for you. And whenever you're ready to try baseball, come through and come swing a bat and run through the bases. It'll change your perspective. It'll add value whenever you're ready.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Kiana, and enjoy your night.
Thank you.